I'm still shaking a little as I share this story. Just a week ago, I was in a bustling city for a conference. I chose a budget hotel that used to be a 19th century mansion. I thought it would be charming. The creaky floors and faded wallpaper felt unique and cozy. I was hoping for some inspiration as a freelance graphic designer, but I never expected what happened. The first night, I noticed an antique mirror on the wall. It felt odd to look into. It didn't reflect me right. At first, I thought it was just the low light. But then I caught myself staring. I felt this strange sensation wash over me. I shook it off. Maybe I was just tired. That night, I tried to sleep, but I heard soft thuds from above. It didn't make sense. I was on the top floor. I listened closely, and then it stopped. I thought it was just the old building settling, but unease crept in. Something felt wrong. The next day was packed. The conference was buzzing with speakers and networking. I didn't think much about the mirror or the noises. But that night, when I returned, I saw something move in my peripheral vision. A fleeting shadow raced past. I whipped my head around, but nothing was there. I told myself I was exhausted and went to bed, though it was hard to shake the feeling. As the days rolled on, even stranger things happened. The mirror began to show images. They weren't happening in real time. I saw laughing people I didn't recognize. Their faces felt familiar, yet distant. I shivered. Was it the hotel's history catching up with me? I shrugged it off as stress from the conference. But then came the night that shook me to my core. I returned to my room and saw my belongings rearranged. My laptop was on the bed instead of the desk. My heart raced. I remembered locking the door. A note on my desk read, "You're not alone." Panic washed over me. I had no idea who had been in my room. I thought I must have forgotten and left it unlocked, but that didn't add up. I stood frozen. Was I imagining things? I felt cold sweat on my brow. I felt like I needed to escape. But another part of me was drawn to stay. I wanted to understand. What if it was all in my head? But what if it wasn't? As I turned to leave the hallway, something caught my eye in the mirror. I looked back, standing at my door. The reflection wasn't mine. I blinked hard. The figure in the mirror stared right at me. My blood ran cold. What was happening? With terror pushing me forward, I ran from my room, desperate to escape the hotel. Each echo of my footsteps rang like a warning, urging me to leave. As I reached the stairs, I glanced back one last time. The mirror still hung there, waiting. I knew then, I was never truly alone. I raced down the stairs, each step filled with dread. I reached the lobby, panting, and glanced around. No one seemed to notice my distress. The receptionist was lost in her phone. The few guests looked relaxed. I felt a chill, as I realized I was the only one who sensed the strangeness. I hurried outside, the night air biting at my skin. I walked a few paces down the street, trying to collect my thoughts. What had happened in that room? I mustered the courage to turn back and confront the hotel. I needed answers, even if fear clutched at my chest. I stepped back into the lobby. The receptionist looked up, her expression flat. "Can I help you?" she asked, almost disinterested. Something happened in my room," I stammered, blood rushing in my ears. "It was rearranged, and there was a note." I hesitated, feeling silly, but there was something in her eyes that urged me to keep talking. "What room?" she asked flatly. "Room 302. She typed something into her computer without looking up. "No notes logged. You sure you didn't leave it open?" "No, I locked the door." She finally met my gaze, a flicker of curiosity passing through her eyes. "I'll send someone to check it out." I need to know what's going on. Why did someone go in my room?" I pressed, my voice rising. "You'll have to wait." The receptionist's tone returned to its impassive tone. Feeling dismissed, I stepped away from the counter and turned toward a door that led to the hotel's small bar. I needed a drink to calm my nerves. Somehow, surrounded by strangers, I hoped for some normalcy. As I took a sip of my drink, I overheard a woman at the bar. "That mirror in the hotel? It's an old story," she said, looking intently at her friend. "Supposedly, it shows things from the past." I leaned in, unable to resist. "What do you mean?" The woman paused, studying my face. It said to trap images of people who once stayed there. Sometimes their energy lingers. My stomach twisted. Why? Nodding her head, she said, "They say it's because of the mirror's history. It wasn't always a hotel. So much happened in that mansion." What happened? Before she could answer, the bartender interrupted. "Last call, folks," he announced, and that cut off our conversation. I felt hollow inside. Was it my imagination? Or was the hotel trying to draw me in deeper? I finished my drink quickly, the alcohol burning down my throat. I needed to investigate. I had no real plan, but whatever was in room 302, in that mirror, became my focus. Back in the hallway, my steps echoed. Each door looked the same, but something tugged me toward mine. The note. Maybe there was a clue. As I reached my door, I froze. The door was ajar. My heart raced. Had someone gone in again? I stepped back, scanning the environment. Then a chill shot through me. I could have sworn I saw the shadow of someone moving inside. That's when I saw it. In the mirror's reflection, a figure stood behind me. Cold dread filled my veins. I turned slowly, but nothing was there. Just the empty hallway. The mirror showed something I couldn't see. What was it hiding? I stood frozen, facing the slightly open door of room 302. My heart thudded against my chest, but curiosity pulled me forward. I needed to know what was happening. I pushed the door open wider, the creaking sound echoing in the tense silence. The room was dark, save for the faint glow from the street lamp filtering through the curtains. I stepped inside, my breath catching as I focused on the mirror hanging on the wall. Everything felt surreal. Had someone been in here? Nothing appeared to be disturbed. The bed was made, the chair neatly tucked in. But then, a glimmer caught my eye. The note was gone. "Where is it?" I whispered to myself, scanning the room frantically. Did I imagine it? My pulse quickened. I approached the mirror, its surface oddly smooth and reflective, almost inviting. In its reflection, I saw myself staring back, but something else shifted in the corner. I turned quickly, but the room remained empty. I swore I saw a flicker of movement, like a shadow sliding away from my view. The chill crept down my spine again. I moved closer to the mirror, feeling an inexplicable pull. What was it hiding? I reached out, my fingers brushing against the cool surface, sending a shiver through me. The sensation was unlike anything I'd ever felt. It was as if the mirror was alive. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed above me, making me jump back. I glanced toward the ceiling. Was that a noise from the room above? I hesitated. My instincts screamed to leave, but a strange compulsion kept me rooted to the spot. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. No reply came, just the echo of my own uncertainty. I cursed under my breath and stepped back into the hallway, my eyes darting toward the other doors. They all looked identical, but I felt eyes on me, watching. Determined to find answers, I made my way to the staircase, unsure of where it would lead me. The stairs creaked as I descended, the air thickening with each step. I noticed an open door at the end of the hallway. Was that where the sound had come from? A cold sweat trickled down my back, but adrenaline pushed me forward. I was halfway down when I noticed a figure out of the corner of my eye, standing just outside the doorway. Dressed in a long, dark coat, the figure had their back turned to me. "Excuse me?" I called, hoping for a human connection against the unsettling backdrop. The figure didn't move. My heart raced. I was about to turn away when they suddenly glanced back. A flash of recognition hit me, though I couldn't place who it was. Before I could gather my thoughts, the figure vanished into thin air. I blinked, shocked. Had I imagined it? Then came the sound again, a loud crash from above, followed by hurried footsteps. They echoed through the building, growing louder. I felt a swell of panic. Someone was in the hotel. I glanced at the staircase, my mind racing with options. Should I run? Hide? Questions flooded in. Who was in the hotel and why was everything so bizarre? I took a deep breath, preparing myself to confront the unknown. I wouldn't let fear dictate my actions. As I made my way back toward the main lobby, I couldn't shake the feeling that answers were just out of reach. But one thing was clear. Something was stirring within those walls, and I was only beginning to uncover its secrets. I pushed through the lobby doors and froze. The front desk was deserted, and a heavy silence enveloped the space. My heart raced as I scanned the room, looking for any sign of life. Wasn't there someone here earlier? My unease grew, gnawing at me as the smell of stale coffee lingered. I turned my focus toward the large windows overlooking the street. Outside, the street lamp flickered, the same one that cast light into room 302. An unsettling thought crossed my mind. What if something had happened to the other guests? Suddenly, I felt a sharp pull in my gut, urging me to investigate. I decided to head to the staff area, hoping to find someone who could explain the strange atmosphere. As I passed the front desk, I noticed a loose sheet of paper fluttering on the countertop. I picked it up and read the hastily scribbled note. It was an emergency contact list, filled with names and numbers. One caught my attention. Jenna, room 207. Why did that name seem familiar? I dropped the note back down, the urgency rising within me. Room 207. If anyone had answers, it might be her. I headed toward the staircase again, my steps echoing in the empty lobby. Climbing the stairs, I could feel the air thickening, almost crackling with tension. Each step felt deliberate, matching the pounding of my heart. I reached the second floor, glancing at the closed doors lining the hallway. My pulse quickened as I approached room 207, uncertainty blooming in my chest. I raised my hand to knock but hesitated. What if no one was in there? Or worse, what if there was something sinister waiting on the other side? I took a deep breath and rapped my knuckles softly against the wooden door. Silence. A moment passed before I knocked again, this time a little harder. The quiet, suffocating, wrapped around me like a shroud. I turned to leave, about to give up when I heard it. The faint sound of footsteps approaching from within. My heart skipped as the door creaked open, revealing a disheveled woman. Her hair was wild, eyes wide with panic. "Who are you?" she gasped, her voice shaky. I'm just trying to find out what's going on. I heard noises and—" My words trailed off as I noticed the fear in her eyes. This wasn't just stress from the situation. It was something deeper. She glanced over her shoulder, clearly weighing her options. "We're not safe here," she whispered, eyes darting around as if the walls had ears. Before I could ask what she meant, the lights flickered, casting eerie shadows in the hallway. The tremble in her voice caught my attention. "You need to come in quickly." I stepped inside without hesitation, closing the door behind me. Inside, the room was dimly lit. Clothes were strewn about, as if a struggle had taken place. "What happened?" I demanded, unable to mask my fear. She took a deep breath, struggling to hold back the flood of terror. "I saw something in the mirror. Something that wasn't right." As the weight of her words sank in, the lights flickered again, and an icy chill swept through the room. My breaths came out in shaky bursts, as a sudden understanding settled over me. Whatever was happening in this hotel, it was worse than I thought. Then came a loud bang from the hallway, shaking the walls. Jenna whimpered beside me, her eyes wide with horror. "They're here," she murmured, and my heart sank. In that moment, I realized this was only the beginning. Jenna turned her gaze towards the door, her body tense. I could see the fear washing over her. I stepped closer, trying to mask my own panic. The loud banging from the hallway echoed again, rattling the door frame. "What do you mean they're here?" I whispered, my voice barely audible above the noise. "I don't know how to explain it. Just trust me," she said, her eyes darting to the window, then back to the door. "We can't let them find us." I didn't have time to question her. The walls of room 207 felt like they were closing in. "Who are they?" I pressed, hoping for answers, but her expression told me she was holding back far more than she was letting on. Before she could respond, a loud crash sounded just outside the door. The doorknob rattled and I jumped back, my heart racing. It felt like time slowed, the world outside sharpening into a focus that was almost surreal. They might try to come in. Jenna stepped toward a cluttered closet and pulled it open. "Hide!" Without thinking, I rushed inside, squeezing myself behind a pile of clothes. I held my breath, the heavy fabric closing around me. I could barely see, but I could hear everything. The door creaked open, and the hallway lights flickered out, plunging us into darkness. I strained to hear any sound, my mind racing. Footsteps shuffled inside the room. Someone was inside, a presence that sent a chill down my spine. "The mirrors." Jenna's whisper pierced the darkness. "Don't look at the mirrors." I didn't know what she meant, but I felt a wave of unease wash over me. The chilling realization hit me. Her fear wasn't just about people. There was something else. Something more sinister. The footsteps came closer. I could hear a faint whispering, words I couldn't quite catch. Then suddenly, they stopped. I clenched my fists, waiting. But nothing happened. Silence enveloped the room, thick and suffocating. I dared to peek through the clothes, my breath hitching in my throat. There was a figure standing in front of the mirror, a dark outline almost blending into the shadows. I couldn't see their face, but I could sense the danger. Jenna wasn't just afraid of intruders, she was afraid of whatever that was. "Stay back!" she shouted suddenly, her heart-stopping scream sending a jolt through me. I could see the figure shift slightly, almost as if it were responding to her. My instincts kicked in, and I started to emerge from my hiding place. "Jenna!" I called out, but my voice was lost in a wave of noise, the sound of something shattering, followed by Jenna's terrified gasp. Without thinking, I burst from the closet and rushed towards the chaos. The scene was horrifying. Jenna was on the ground, and the mirror had shattered into a million pieces, fragments of glass splintering across the floor. The figure, now set loose in the room, was no longer just a shadow. It was an entity taking form. I felt a different kind of fear now, something primal and raw. I had to act. I needed to help her. But any step I took felt like a step closer to doom. And then, through the haze of confusion, I caught sight of something glimmering in the mess of glass. It was a locket, half buried. Something instinctual told me it held secrets I desperately needed. That's when I saw it. The figure in the mirror twisted, its form becoming more defined with every heartbeat. I dropped to the floor, ignoring the sharp pain of glass cutting into my skin. I reached for the locket, my fingers trembling, and pulled it from the pile. The moment I grasped it, a cold rush swept through the room. Jenna was still on the ground, her eyes wide with terror as she scrambled to her feet. "Don't look at it!" she yelled. But the dark figure was too compelling. My eyes were glued to it, drawn in by its shimmering, otherworldly aura. "Jenna, what is that?" I called out, trying to lift the locket closer to my face. "It's feeding off your fear," she cried, darting toward me. "We have to get out of here." Before I could respond, the entity lunged forward. It surged toward us, darkness spilling from it like smoke. I forced myself to look away from the mirror and focused on Jenna, who was breathing heavily, her face pale. The locket felt warm in my grip. I flicked it open, revealing a picture that blurred and shifted before my eyes. I blinked, trying to make sense of it. It showed a woman. Her face looked so familiar, though I couldn't place her. "What's that?" Jenna's voice cracked. I don't know," I stammered, barely able to process what I was holding. It felt like a key, pulsing with energy, connecting me to everything happening right now. "Look at the back," Jenna urged, her eyes darting between me and the figure, which hesitated just outside the flickering light. I complied, flipping the locket over. Intricate markings etched into the metal glowed faintly. A chill ran down my spine as I realized they resembled symbols from a strange book I had seen in the library. A book about protective charms and curses. Suddenly, the entity surged towards us, its scream echoing through the room, a cacophony of whispers that slithered into my mind. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The air turned thick and suffocating. "Use it! Whatever it is, use it!" Jenna shouted, her voice persistent against the fear choking me. I remembered the markings. I had to act fast. "Get behind me!" I yelled, raising the locket high. As I chanted the words that formed in my memory, the room erupted in light. The dark entity shrieked, its icy hands reaching out, but it recoiled as the energy radiated from the locket. It pushed the entity back, forcing it away from us. "Keep going!" Jenna screamed. The whispers turned frantic, rising into a maddening chorus. "You can't escape. You're mine." I pressed on, pouring every ounce of courage I had into the locket. Then, the light exploded outwards. With a shattering sound, it felt as if the air cracked open. The figure shrieked one last time, its form splintering into shadows before imploding into darkness. And then there was silence. "What just happened?" I gasped, lowering the locket. Jenna grasped my arm, her eyes reflecting a mix of fear and awe. "I don't know, but we can't stay here. There's more to this hotel than we realize. We have to leave now." Just as she spoke, a low rumble echoed through the hotel. The floor beneath us trembled. I looked at Jenna, panic rising again. "Someone's coming," I said, my voice shaky. Jenna nodded, urgency igniting her movements. And just as we turned to escape, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching from the hallway. The footsteps grew louder as I held my breath. My heart raced. We had to move. I yanked on Jenna's arm, but the tension in the air felt heavy. "Which way?" I whispered urgently. "Back towards the stairs," she replied, her voice almost breaking. We turned, hoping to avoid whatever was approaching. As we dashed through the darkened room, the ground shook again, this time a low, furious rumble, like thunder rising from within the hotel itself. "Move!" I urged, pulling her with me toward the doorway. Just as we reached it, the door slammed shut, the force echoing in the silence. Panic flooded me. "No, no, no!" I pounded on it, my hands stinging from the impact. "Try the windows!" Jenna shouted, already moving to one. I followed, heart pounding in my chest. The glass was cold against my fingers. I tried to lift it, but it wouldn't budge. "It's stuck!" "Help me! We have to find a way out!" I turned back toward the door, ready to try again. But the footsteps had stopped. The silence felt thick and suffocating. I exchanged looks with Jenna, who was breathing heavily, fear etched on her face. I could feel a new presence in the room, heavy and watchful. "Get ready," Jenna whispered, backing away from the door. "It's coming." Then the air changed. The temperature dropped, and I could see our breath clouding in the cold. I felt a wave of dread wash over me. What was waiting for us? Suddenly the doorknob rattled, twisting violently as something pulled on it from the other side. My stomach dropped, and I grabbed onto Jenna's arm. "What if it's that thing again?" "Just stay close," she whispered. With a harsh bang, the door swung open, revealing a man dressed in an old-fashioned hotel uniform, his face cold and expressionless. "Guests don't belong here after hours," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "Who are you?" I demanded, taking a protective step in front of Jenna. He didn't respond, just stared at us, eyes flat and unyielding. Their darkness seemed to absorb the light around them. For a moment, I saw something flicker behind him, shadows shifting like they were alive. "Run!" Jenna screamed, pushing past me. I didn't look back. I sprinted after her, heart pounding in my ears, the chilling air nipping at our heels. We barreled down the hall and took the stairs two at a time, hoping to put as much distance between us and the man as possible. But as we reached the bottom floor, we skidded to a halt. The lobby spread out before us, but it was different. Darker, almost as if the shadows slithered across the walls. The front doors were locked tight. I rushed to them, shaking the handle. "Come on! Look!" Jenna pointed to the back of the lobby. A flickering light caught our attention. There, near the bar area, the antique lanterns were glowing with a warm light. But as I squinted, I realized the glow was not just an artifact. It rippled and pulsed like the locket. I turned to Jenna. "What do you think it is?" "I don't know, but it could be our way out," she said, stepping closer. Just then, the low rumble from earlier returned, and the shadows in the lobby twisted violently. I felt the air turn electric, our chance for escape slipping away. "Make your choice," the man's voice echoed, reverberating from every corner. Jenna took a breath, determination lighting her eyes. "We have to move now, it's our only chance." Then, everything went dark. I stood in the pitch black, my heart hammering in my chest. Was the darkness just a trick of my mind? Or had we actually been swallowed by it? I reached for Jenna's hand, but there was nothing but air. Panic surged through me. "Jenna," I whispered. No response. I called her name again, a little louder this time, but only silence answered me. It felt as if the world had disappeared. My breaths came quicker now, sharp and frantic. I took a small step forward, my foot meeting nothing but the cold floor. Then, I felt it. A flicker of light brushed against my skin. I turned towards it, squinting, praying for any signal in the dark. Just as I thought I might not be entirely alone, a faint glow appeared ahead, growing stronger by the second. "Jenna!" I shouted again, this time more desperate. "I'm here!" Her voice broke through the shadows, and relief washed over me. I staggered toward the light, feeling my way along the wall until I finally saw her silhouette. The flickering light danced around us, revealing the antique lanterns now glowing brighter than before. "Did you see where that man went?" I asked, scanning the room. She shook her head, her eyes wide, reflecting the light's hue. "No, but I think he wanted us to choose something." Her voice trembled as she glanced around, looking for escape routes. The glow of the lanterns pulled me closer. As I approached, I noticed they weren't just lit. They were alive, swirling with vibrant colors that didn't make sense. This wasn't any ordinary lantern. It felt like a portal to somewhere else. The light beckoned me, promising safety, and maybe even freedom. Suddenly, the shadows coalesced on the walls, taking on shapes I couldn't quite make out. I whispered, "Do you see that?" "What are they?" Jenna asked, backing away. Her voice was shaky, and I could feel her fear. "I think—" Before I could finish, the lanterns flickered violently, and the shadows surged forward. They slithered across the room toward us, dark tendrils reaching out, hungry for something. My heart raced again. This wasn't just scary, it felt real and dangerous. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing Jenna's hand and pulling her with me towards the glowing light. As we got closer, I realized the light seemed to pulse with energy, reacting to our presence. "We have to touch it!" I yelled, trying to drown out the chaotic whispers of the shadows. We dove for the nearest lantern, fingers outstretched. Just before we connected, everything exploded into blinding whiteness. I felt weightless, as if I was being pulled apart, every cell in my body vibrating with fear and adrenaline. Then, all at once, the brightness faded, and we landed hard on a cold stone floor. I tasted dust and musty air. The surroundings were eerily quiet, except for the sound of my own gasping breaths. I looked around. We were no longer in the lobby. A vast, dimly lit chamber stretched before us, lined with stone walls that echoed like a forgotten tomb. Shadows loomed in every corner. "What just happened?" Jenna whispered, fear creeping back into her voice. "I think we're somewhere else," I replied, dread pooling in my stomach. That was the last thing I wanted to face. Before I could process what this meant, a low growl rumbled through the chamber. Someone, or something, was not far behind us. The growl vibrated through the stone, sending chills down my spine. I turned to Jenna, her face pale and strained. "We need to hide," I whispered. But before I could move, the shadows shifted. The room felt alive, as if it were closing in on us. "Where?" Jenna's voice caught in her throat, panic lacing her words. "Over there!" I pointed to an archway partially concealed by a heavy tapestry. The fabric swayed slightly, as if someone had recently brushed by it. Without waiting for a reply, I sprinted towards it, Jenna hot on my heels. We ducked behind the tapestry just as a figure emerged from the shadows. It was tall and thin, its outline barely forming in the dim light. The growl had transformed into a deep, rumbling voice. "You cannot escape," it intoned, each word resonating through the air. I held my breath, not daring to move. Jenna's grip on my arm was like a vice, and I could feel her trembling beside me. As the figure stepped closer, the faint glow from the lanterns illuminated its features. A mask, twisted and grotesque, covered its face. "What does it want?" Jenna whispered. "I don't know," I admitted, fear drenching my words. I peered around the edge of the tapestry to get a better look. The figure was now scanning the room, its hollow eyes searching for something, or someone. "I think it's looking for us," I murmured, recoiling as it turned its head sharply in our direction. My heart raced, and my mind spun with thoughts of escape. "Stay quiet," I urged. But even as I spoke, I knew panic had a way of unraveling our best intentions. The figure shifted suddenly, its body twisting in a way that didn't seem human. Then, without warning, it let out another growl, louder this time, as if it was summoning something. Dark shadows began to slither around the room, responding to its call. They were smaller, but just as menacing, creeping toward us. We had to move. "Now!" I hissed, barely waiting for Jenna to react. We burst through the archway and stumbled into a narrow corridor, breathless and disoriented. The corridor stretched endlessly in both directions, but one side seemed to pulse with soft light. "Let's go that way," I pointed, and we dashed down the hall. As we ran, my mind raced. What had that figure been? And what exactly did it mean by, "You cannot escape"? Just as we turned a corner, I caught sight of a door at the end of the passage, slightly ajar. Hope sparked within me. "There! We can get out!" I exclaimed, my legs propelling me forward. Jenna grabbed my arm, halting me just before we reached the door. "Wait! What if it's a trap?" I hesitated, glancing back at the shadows now pooling behind us. They moved in hypnotic waves, swirling and rising as if alive. "What choice do we have?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. That's when I heard it again. The low growl echoed louder, now mingling with a haunting laugh. It sent a jolt of terror through me. Whatever had haunted that chamber was closing in. "We have to take our chances!" I yelled, flinging the door open. Instead of an escape, I found myself staring at a room filled with mirrors, reflecting our terrified faces back at us. But that wasn't the worst part. I could see beyond the mirrors, the figure from before now shifting within them, drawing closer. Jenna gasped. "What do we do?" I racked my brain for an answer, but all I felt was the realization sinking in. There was no way out of here. I pushed back the mounting panic and forced myself to take a deep breath. The figure twisted in the reflection, drawing nearer, and I could feel its presence clawing at the edges of my mind. "We can't look at it," I whispered, recalling Jenna's urgent warning. "Focus on something else." "Like what?" she asked, her voice sharp with fear. "Okay, let's move," I said, gripping her arm tightly. "We can't let it corner us here. The mirrors, they might trap us. We have to find a way out. Look for something. Anything." I turned away from the reflections, forcing my eyes away from the sinister figure that seemed to hold sway over the mirror world. The room itself felt alive, everything pulsating with overwhelming energy. The mirrors warped and twisted, bending perception, making it difficult to focus. My heart raced, the sound of my pulse drumming in my ears. "Over there!" Jenna pointed to a section of the wall where the reflections overlapped and created a flickering pathway. "It looks different. Maybe it's a way through." We rushed towards it, moving as quickly as we could while remaining wary of the mirrors. Each step felt heavy, as if the air around us thickened. The indistinct laughter echoed again, more jarring than ever, and shadows seemed to stretch toward us in anticipation. Once we reached the flickering wall, I hesitated. "What's behind this?" I asked, glancing back nervously. "What if it's more traps?" "Do you have a better idea?" Jenna shot back. Behind us, the figure in the mirrors grew restless, its form rippling as if preparing to breach the space between the worlds. "Okay," I said, urgency propelling my words. "On 3, we push through." I counted softly. 1, 2, 3. We lunged forward, arms extended. My hand connected with the surface, and it felt as if I was thrusting into a thick fog. There was a moment of disorientation, a stretching and pulling sensation, and then nothing. When I regained my balance, I gasped. We stood in darkness again, but the oppressive atmosphere felt different. It was cooler, devoid of the weight that had pressed down on us. I instinctively glanced around. There were no mirrors, but shadows flitted across the far walls. "Where are we?" Jenna asked, her voice slightly trembling. "I don't know," I muttered. "I think we might have escaped, but is it safe?" As my eyes adjusted, I caught sight of a door nearby, cracked open and illuminated by a flickering light. "That way," I urged. Together we moved cautiously toward it, each step drawing closer to the safety of the unknown. "Do you think it's over?" Jenna whispered, her eyes still darting nervously around. "I can't be sure," I replied. "We've escaped that room, but I'm not convinced we're out of danger yet. We need to keep moving." I pushed the door open wider, revealing an old hallway lined with faded portraits. The paintings seemed to watch us with their ghostly eyes. For a moment, all I could hear was the sound of our breathing, punctuated by the distant echoes of laughter. "We have to—" Before I could finish, a sharp chill swept through the corridor, and a figure appeared in the distance. It resembled the man from earlier, yet it shifted like a shadow, almost as if it was part of the very walls. "Run!" I yelled, gripping Jenna's hand again, and we dashed down the hallway as the shadows slithered behind us, hungry for what they lost. What lay ahead remained a mystery, the place we weren't supposed to be. Yet, we pressed on, adrenaline driving us forward. Each door we passed seemed to flicker with luminescence, almost alive with the stories of those left behind. Just as we neared the end, we stumbled into another large room, a hall filled with mirrors, identical to the ones before. Panic surged again at the realization, memories flooding back. The figure now fully formed in the reflection, smirking. Its whispered curses echoed sinisterly through the chamber. "Not again!" Jenna cried, eyes wide with fear. We turned to run back, but the hallway was gone, replacing it with more mirrors. Our reflections multiplied, surrounding us. I stumbled backward, heart racing, grappling for answers. There had to be a way out beyond this torment. "Maybe we can use the locket again?" Jenna suggested desperately, clutching her head. I fumbled to pull it out, the warm glow still resonating with power. With my heart in my throat and my mind spinning, I raised it high, chanting the words I could barely remember. The shadows recoiled in response, the figure howling in protest. "Come on!" Jenna urged, her eyes fixed on the shadows creeping closer. The room darkened, a whirlwind of shadows and light colliding in a chaotic dance. The locket pulsed, illuminating the area with a startling brilliance, forcing the figure to dissolve back into whispers. The shadows thinned. "Get ready!" I shouted, throwing the locket directly at the mirror. The moment it collided, light burst forth, shattering the calm of night and swirling around us like storms unleashed. And then, there was silence. I cracked open my eyes, the world shifting back into focus. Had we made it? The shadows were gone, replaced by soft morning light filtering through a window. "We're outside?" I muttered, confused. We stood in a park, far away from the hotel, the sun bathing everything in warmth. "Did we escape?" Jenna asked incredulously, her eyes darting around in disbelief. "I think... maybe?" I replied, still processing everything that happened. But just as we began to feel the weight lift, a whisper floated through the air. Chilling and ominous, the refrain echoed in a way that sent a shiver down my spine, reminding me that uncertainty lingered. "I don't know if we're truly free," I replied quietly, glancing back toward the distant silhouette of the haunted hotel. I moved to take a step forward, but I hesitated. I realized then that some questions might never be answered. Some mysteries aren't meant to be uncovered. As we walked away, that thought hung heavily between us.